And why does Jesus tell this story? Jesus doesn't tell this story like we use this story in Christianity to encourage mothers and fathers whose sons and daughters have gone wayward. And yes, be encouraged by the story. Be encouraged that there is always hope for what we call the prodigal sons and daughters, that they would come home. But the whole purpose of why Jesus told this story is in verse number 1, where it says, "Then all the tax collectors and all the sinners," look, "drew near to him." They drew near to him, but who's upset about it? Verse number 2, the older brothers. The Pharisees, the scribes complained, saying, "Look, this man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying. The whole purpose of this entire parable is that Jesus wanted to show the contrast between the Father's love between the lost sons and daughters who were represented by the sinners and the tax collectors versus the older brother who was represented by the Pharisees and the scribes, because the Pharisees and the scribes only served God out of obligation and not relationship. And the Father was receiving, Jesus was receiving the tax collectors and the sinners, the ones who absolutely need the love of the Father, the ones who need the favor of the Father, the ones who need the grace and the mercy of the Father. But it's the older brother who won't even go into the house when the lost son comes home. And the reason is because he's only serving God, only serving the Father out of obligation and not out of his heart. We obey God out of abiding, not out of striving. It's out of relationship. When Potiphar's wife comes to Joseph and she says, "Come and sleep with me," Joseph's response is, "How could I do that and sin against my God?" And listen, Joseph didn't even have the 10 Commandments. He just knew that if I do that, I'm going to violate my relationship with the Father. That's the heart. That's what keeps us in obedience to God. It's not because we have a prescribed set of rules and regulations. It's because we love Him. We love Him. We have a relationship with Him. We're dwelling with Him. We're in the house. And I would just say, just be careful, because what usually happens is when we do serve God out of rules and regulations and rituals and all that stuff, it's almost like we get a little pharisaical heart in us when it comes to other people. And we look at other people and, it's like the tax collector and the Pharisee who were praying for God. And the Pharisee was over there saying, "Man, I'm so glad I'm not like this guy." But the tax collector's over there beating his chest saying, "God, save a sinner like me." It's an older brother mentality. I'm better than you because I've obeyed all the commandments. It's like the rich young ruler who comes to Jesus. "Jesus, what's the greatest commandment?" He tells him, "Well, I've done that since I was a kid. I've obeyed all the commandments. I've never done anything wrong." "All right, then go and sell all of your goods and give it away to the poor." And the Bible says he went away brokenhearted because he knew he couldn't do it. And it wasn't because Jesus was adding another rule to his life that he couldn't follow. It was because Jesus was desiring intimacy. Yeah, you follow all the rules, but you haven't given me your heart. You're just a servant. And our mentality is, God, I want to serve God. Come on, how many of you know? I want to serve God. But I also have to know Him as Father. I can't just know Him as Master. He is Master, but He's Father. And I need to know Him as a son. I need to know Him because I need to know His heart. I need to go into the house and celebrate with the Father even when the lost son comes home. Even though he went out and squandered everything. Because that's where the Father's heart is. I'm not just going to stay out in the field. Yes, I'm going to serve Him out there, and I'm going to do, and I'm going to labor, and I'm going to do all that stuff. But then there comes the time where I have to enter into the house with Him. I have to make Him my dwelling place.